Okay. Normally I'm outside because I love recording out there, but it's raining like crazy. In fact, we'll probably hear some thunder in the background here shortly. But so I'm just doing this in one of my offices. But what I want to talk about today is 5 things that you should look for when you're going to walk a multifamily property. So let's talk about this for a minute, because let's say that a broker calls you, you've got a pocket listing for you to look at, you run the numbers and it makes sense, and everything looks fantastic. You feel like you can raise the equity, you've got funding lined up, but you've got to go check it out, right? And you've got to lay eyes on it. So let's talk about maybe that first drive that you make out there, or maybe you fly out there depending upon where it is, and you leave your emotions in the car or at home, and let's talk about the things that you need to look at least 5 of them right out of the gate here. Okay. And so, like, for example, on our San Antonio deal, this is exactly what my partner Scott and I did. So one of the first things we did was we looked at walkability. So what does that mean? It means what's around the asset. Okay. What amenities are near there? What's the neighborhood like? You can use Google Earth to do a lot of this and do a virtual look, but you really need to drive it. There's no substitute for an in-person tour of the neighborhood. You visit the businesses around there. You maybe talk to some of the neighboring businesses, ask them what the area is like. And if you see a police officer, you ask them what the area is like. You basically get to know the neighborhood backwards and forwards. We kind of drive in concentric circles. We look for parks. We want to know how close the grocery store is. What's the shopping like? What's there to do around there? Are there anything to do? Like again, that San Antonio is just top of mind. There's this whole entertainment area that's right at the bottom of the hill from where this complex is, and so that's the kind of stuff we want to see. What sorts of retailers are around the business? I want to see national retailers. I don't want to see local retailers. There's a Starbucks a mile away from this. Again, I'm using that San Antonio example, but anyway, so that's the first thing we do is we drive around in concentric circles and we see what that neighborhood looks like, what it'd be like to live there, right? You got to know what it'd be like to live there. And so the next thing is we go to the asset and we look at curb appeal. Okay, we look at first impressions. What does it look like from the street? And again, I'll use the San Antonio deal that we're raising money for right now as an example. It's got a beautiful sign in the front, white fence along the road, because that's what a renter is going to do when they go look at it. Are there improvements you're going to need to make or want to make to improve the curb appeal? Because people are visual and they're gonna do this. So it's something you've got to do. What is it? What's the condition of the property? What's the paint look like? Does it look like a sore thumb compared to the other properties? What are the lines like? In the parking lot, are you going to need to resurface it and stripe it? What's the sidewalk look like? So on and so forth. The doors, the windows. Like an asset we've got in Dallas, we're putting all new windows in because the windows are just all jacked up. So we're looking at the neighborhood. Then we're going to circle in on the asset, okay, and look at the asset. And then, obviously we're looking at the physical condition of the property. We're going to walk it. We're going to inspect it. So that's the third thing is you're really checking out and this is multifamily, Oregon, by the way. Hey, Nicholas, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, and by the way, on that note, on that San Antonio asset, we've still got some slots left in that. If you're an accredited investor, you really should check it out. I'll give you the website. It's creecap.com, creecap.com, and there's a webinar link there that you can watch the presentation we did. And if you want to watch a presentation on how we look at an area and look at an asset, I highly recommend you check that out. So again, the first thing is we're checking the walkability. We're checking the neighborhood. Then we're looking at our first impression. How does it feel? I know this sounds kind of simplistic, and in a way it is, but it's so freaking critical. If the property doesn't look well from the street, that's a problem. People aren't going to want to rent there. So again, we're looking at parking lots. We're looking at the exterior condition. We're looking at paint colors. We're looking at landscaping. We're looking at the sidewalks, just every piece of that, and making notes. And that's another thing. You want to be taking notes as you're doing this, as you're evaluating these things. Now, of course, we haven't even talked about looking at comps yet. These are the initial 5 things that we do when we first get there. Again, neighborhood, physical condition, and curb appeal. So physical condition, what's the roof look like? How old is it? What's it made of? Is it, covered in stuff? Is there moss growing on it? Are there detached or missing shingles? Is it deflected or sunken in? Are you seeing any of that? That happens from time to time. And so you look for that. We're looking at the foundation. Is there any noticeable cracking? One thing I look for is if they've put siding over brick. That's always a red flag for me, but are you seeing any bricks, any separation? Are there any walls bowed or misaligned? Are there doors that don't close in the asset, things like that something that require a further look, right? This is physical condition we're talking about. What do the systems look like? How's the HVAC look? Has it been maintained, or is it trashed? How old are the units? And when you actually get into the property and you're looking inside the units, are the air filters clogged? Have they been changed? Has the maintenance been, because that's a maintenance item, because that's one of the first things that, we look at to see if they've been, HVAC filters have been changed out. Because if not, you're going to have problems. You're going to have units go down. So that's on the HVAC side. On the plumbing, what's the plumbing? What is it made of? Is it PVC? Is it copper? How old are the fixtures? Are they energy efficient? Is there an opportunity there? Any signs of leaking? Obviously, when you're walking inside the units, is there any signs of leaking? And then of course electrical. No question, you've got to check the electrical. Is it aluminum, for example? That's a problem, because that breaks off and it starts to spark, and it's a problem. Depending upon the age, and that's like in the 70s. And if it's older than that, it might even have fuses, and that's something you want to look at. Has the wiring been updated? Are the outlets throughout the property 3-prong or 2-prong? Do the wet areas in the kitchen and bath have GFI outlets? Very important that you're checking this stuff. Now, I want to say this to you. This is a preliminary look, okay? This is not your due diligence inspection. This is you checking out some things when you first get there, just to see if there's any issues, right? And so, hey, Henry, good to see you, buddy. Thank you for your shout out. Anyway, so you're looking at all of these things. The age of course, when you get in units, you're looking at the wear on the floors, the carpet, the age of the appliances, the age of the kitchen cabinets. Now, a lot of times, what we'll do if the cabinet doors are dated and they're like the wood finish, we'll replace the cabinet doors. We don't replace the boxes very often, but sometimes if they're not in good condition, we'll replace those as well. But ideally, if we can just replace the doors, it changes the whole look of the kitchen. We look at the countertops. Can they be resurfaced, or do they need to be replaced? Obviously, we're looking at obvious things like broken windows and maybe crooked stairs and things of that nature. But you just really got to step back and look at this stuff when you first go look at an asset, and don't rush this. Take your time with it. As it relates to the structure, I look for negative drainage. That's one of the big things that I see. And it's just a real common, and it can create a problem. That's something else I look for. And then whenever possible, I try to catch tenants. And I tell you, this has made me and saved me a lot of money. Okay, so I try to see if there's a tenant there, and I say, what do you think about living here? I'm thinking about moving in here, and what do you think about the place? And you get so much information. I can tell you, we had an asset that I'm actually going to on Monday or Tuesday in Louisiana that we had under contract for $17.5 million. And I talked to a tenant. She said, hey, by the way, these units down here flood all the time. And I'm like, I'm out. I don't want to deal with that. But then the owner came back and took $1 million off. So that conversation saved me $1 million, guys. So that's how important these tenant conversations can be. So, not only will, when you're walking, you're going to get a sense of the overall condition, but tenants can be a gold mine of information, about the area, about the property, about the current management, and you can just get vital information, like I just said, about what should be improved, what's a problem, are there any, issues with the asset. There, what drew them to the neighborhood? What would they change about the property if they owned it? I always ask them that. Are they, would they be willing to pay to stay if the rents went up? Do they plan to stick around if the property changes hands? Now you got to be careful with some of this because some of the contract language will prevent some of these questions. But if you can ask these, I absolutely would. Do they feel like they're getting a good deal on the rent? Things like that. And you want to treat them as conversations, not so much interviews. Be as subtle as you can and just work things in as you can. And I've had these conversations, had residents pull me into their units to show me issues with the property and stuff like that. And you can just get a tremendous amount of information. And then what we do is we look for opportunities to add value. What can we do to add value? Do they have pets? Do they allow pets? No, fantastic. We do. We'll charge pet rent. Do they have assigned parking that we can charge? Which is the case with the San Antonio deal. We can do preferred parking and covered parking. So we're going to do that. There's an area we can possibly do self-storage. That's just like a bonus on that deal. For example, we're going to do possibly do valet trash, where we pick up their trash and put it in the dumpster for them. These are all these things go right to the bottom line. And there's, just capital improvements that we can make, again, that go right to the bottom line. Oh, the units, I'm thinking the San Antonio deal because it's top of mind. We're raising money for it right now. It's got washer dryer hookups, but a lot of units don't have washers and dryers. So we're going to put them in and charge for them. I mean, again, goes right to the bottom line. Yes, we will absolutely charge for covered parking, Gabe. Britton, let me look at your question. How do we structure that conversation about problems tenants tell you? Well, yeah, I mean, you're not soliciting them, Britton. You just have to be careful, when you're having a conversation. I try to make it as subtle, and that's what I just said a minute ago. You want to be as subtle in it, and you got to make sure you can even do it. Sometimes your contract will prevent you from talking to a tenant. But again, you can, if you're subtle, and you can get so much information by doing that. And again, like I said, it saved me $1 million on that Louisiana asset. So it's a conversation worth having. You just have to be careful with it. That's all. And again, this is first blush. Okay. You might not even be at the LOI stage at this point as well. This is your first look at a property. Now we won't go out of town until we have a property locked up, because just not going to spend the money, but we can do a lot of due diligence from home. But again, there's so many ways to add value on a property. Like I said, on that one, there's self-storage, there's washer dryer hookups, covered parking, preferred parking. I know I'm forgetting some things, but these things are just incredibly lucrative. And you guys know, any increase to the net operating income, NOI, is an exponential increase to the value. And it's significant, like 17 to 1. So very, very, my pleasure, Britton, but very, very effective, and one of the things you absolutely want to factor in. So those are the 5 things. I went through them kind of fast, but you do the neighborhood for walkability, you do the asset for curb appeal, then you do the physical inspection. Try to get some tenant opinions, what they think, because again, or again, owners around that asset. Hey, what do you think about Sedona Creek? That actually happens to be the name of the Sedona. What do you think about that one? What's the client base like there? Are they, what's that asset like? And you'll get stuff from owners that have no idea you're thinking about buying it. There can be a wealth of information. So again, but you got to get out there and you got to ask this stuff. And by the way, if you're accredited, that Sedona deal is a freaking incredible deal. I'll tell you why. Let me explain why. So you get an idea. If you're looking at deals, you get an idea why this deal is so amazing. So we're going to have 10 to 12% plus projected cash on cash return, 15% plus IRR projected. But here's the thing: that deal cash flows, breaks even day one at 59% occupied. And I'm going to tell you, 41% vacant, it breaks even the day we take it over without doing anything. That is extremely unusual, okay, especially in this hot market. So if you're accredited and you'd like to check it out, I think I had my team put the website at creecap.com. And even if you're not, you want to watch the presentation, you'll learn what we look for in a market, in a big MSA, metropolitan statistical area, what we look for in a submarket, what we look for in an asset, the kind of returns we're looking for, and so on and so forth. So you'll really learn a lot from watching that presentation, if you want to see how we present a deal and what we look for, we want to see diversity of employment. We want to see, lots of employment. We want to see, again, national retail tenants around the asset. We want to see, good demographic information, population growing, income growing, jobs growing, all that stuff. So you'll get a really good idea if you watch that. So hopefully you can do that. But if you're accredited, go check that out. We still have availability on that deal. And it's a good one. Anyway, I hope this added some value to you guys. I was just sitting here bored, and I thought, you know what, why don't I go live and see if I can add some value? And so again, those are the 5 ways, 5 things you should look for when you first walk a multifamily. If you got any questions, throw them out. I'll take a look after I'm done here. Anyway, go make it happen, my friends. I'll talk to you soon. See you later.